to 9:15 in the morning, and you are tuned to Grecian Echoes here on WNTN, 1550 AM in Cambridge, Needham, and Boston. We are streaming at WNTN.com on a wintry Monday, January 19th, 2026. It's Mondays with Meleti and your host, Meleti Pouliopoulos. At this time, I would like to introduce a very special guest, Dr. Evangeline Harris Stefanakis. She specializes in understanding the complexity of language and learning challenges in adults and children. She has spent 25 years has 25 years of experience working with individual groups, families here and also in Greece, Bahrain, the Eastern Europe, and Puerto Rican areas. For 15 years, she was faculty at Harvard Graduate School of Education in learning and teaching and leadership development while serving families and children in the Cambridge and Boston public schools. As a special educator, school psychologist, clinical educator, researcher, she uses a portfolio approach to assessment to understand what assessment, evaluation, and instructional approaches are needed to find the assets of the learners. Her book, Differentiated Assessment, How to Assess the Learning Potential of Every Student, is one of many publications that have been released that she has written, and we're so happy to welcome her today to Mondays with Meleti. Kalimera, Dr. Harris, can you hear us?
It's a pleasure to be here in the midst of snow and on a day when we recognize peace and having a dream.
That's right. It's such a beautiful day, even though
Yes.
it's snowing. We're used to that, and I'm so glad that we can do this via Zoom because there's no I don't feel any kind of anxiety that you're going to slip and fall.
Right.
Getting here.
Our plan to be in the studio is this is the greatest alternative for now.
So if I may, Dr. Harris, tell us about your practice. I did some announcing this morning. I've told people of some of your background, but what is it's so diverse, and so I wanted to start with are you working on at this moment, and tell us about the nature of your work.
Well, at present, I am walking the talk, I'm going to say, having been academically out there in universities and training, uh, actually from a classroom teacher to try to keep practice alive. I went back and became an academic. But I retired post COVID um, from Boston University, where I was tenured and actively running and developing portfolio systems to try to show the possibilities of kids at the college level, uh, not just their academics, but their extracurricular, what they do, what they have passion for. And I think that's a key piece. We don't know all the gifts that young people have when we just look narrowly at their paper and pencil work. And I have been, for many years, marveling at how kids tell me, show me that they have all these gifts,
Right.
but no one takes time to sit beside the learner. And right now, in my golden years, I am sitting beside kids that come to me often, kids right now. For the last couple of years, I have been directly in the Boston public schools, serving some of the highest need kids, medically fragile, kids with learning disabilities, some kids that just are in sixth and seventh grade and can't read, but they didn't have an opportunity. And we're trying to figure out how to map a new story for them. So my work has them sit down and draw.
Yeah.
Show me, show me who you are, draw a person. Show me about your family, draw a family. Show me what your house is like. And surprise, I may find out they have no house.
Yeah. So a lot of these students, as I understand, are not. The assessment is, as you say, narrow, and in a public school environment, sometimes they're just put into special ed, not because they're people don't know. They don't know that there is an intelligent, thoughtful person in front of you. They just think, oh, you know, they're not getting it. And this used to happen a lot, as I understand, with immigrant children, people who just speak another language.
Well, I mean, I will be true confession. This dear young woman here, now a dear young woman, went to the after when I was in Watertown in kindergarten. There were enough Greek speakers, so it didn't matter. Someone could tell me where the bathroom was. But my parents in first grade moved to Arlington, Massachusetts. Everyone was Irish Catholic. No one knew Greek, and I was so fearful. I used to literally leave the school building and go home. My mother would pick me up, put me back in the principal's office, and there I was.
Yeah.
I'm. I will say that I've always been concerned about many young, not just Greeks, but kids that don't speak English. They get thrown into a school. There is a belief that they can just do it. And eventually they can if you give them time and you give them an opportunity to catch on and catch up.
Hmm.
But they need time. And we need to look at what they really know in their first language before we start looking only in English.
Right.
Um, in a year plus, um, I could read. I had too long a name. I don't know. My parents, I thought it was Evangelia. That's an easy name. And I went to Greek school, and Kyriamouskia got me going. So I knew how to spell that. I mean, you just do everything they tell you in Greek school.
Right.
But I went to American school, and all of a sudden, I was Evangeline, many letters, and the letters were, you make them different. So I just put down VAN, van. And that was
Yeah.
what but I got in big trouble with just the van, because Miss McEwen in second grade in Arlington said, "That's not your full Christian name. You are a Christian, I think." No more.
So how are students separated and put into or identified to go to special education? Is there a process for that, and or does it just the teacher say, this is where you're going to go?
There are laws and there is a process. The process does call for understanding. A teacher makes a referral that she'll say, "I think something's wrong with this kid. It's not working." The referral should allow for some other specialists to just observe the kid in the classroom to confirm that the teacher just doesn't like the kid, or the kid stands out because something else is going on. Sometimes a social worker is called in, but I have to be honest. If the kid is a minority, a linguistic minority, say a Greek recently arrived or a Haitian or anything, the likelihood is they think, "Oh, well, we'll put them in special ed because they can get some tutoring because I don't want to spend so much time waiting for them to get it."
Hmm. And
And there's a real problem with over identifying
right.
people like me and my brother and half my cousins as um, unable, when in fact we were learning English. We're English language learners, and it takes time. We acquire the language in it takes at least 5 years to be, 3 to 5 years to be fluent in any language. When a little kid, a 3-year-old is not saying a full sentence, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old. And the research has shown us that it takes not just a year, which the law calls for, but especially if you're older, up to 3 years. And support in your first language, like keeping the Greek, don't dump it, keeping the Greek and using the Greek to teach for transfer. How do you make the sounds? We already know how to speak Greek, you only may know how to read Greek, but how do you transfer those skills to parallel in English? And I guess the only piece that I'm going to say is if you look at who are the valedictorians in Boston and many of the urban schools where you have that, you'll see they're all second language learners.
They are.
People who speak, yeah, people who speak more than one language have, research has shown cognitive flexibility. They are way ahead of the game when they catch on and catch up.
But this kind of tutoring that you're speaking of, couldn't this just happen on the side with the student in a regular classroom being
Of
surrounded?
course. Of
So
course,
why
it
aren't?
used to be yeah, yeah, or it used to be someone in the neighborhood that would say, okay, this more practice, a few more worksheets. Not every case, obviously, because some kids may not have. They may need eyeglasses. You got to figure that out. They may need a hearing assistance.
Oh,
They may have a blood disease. I'm not going to say that there aren't kids that need more services. But I think that just a simple reading problem needs more. There are many things that can be done.
so you mentioned now hearing people who are hearing impaired or visually
Mhm.
impaired. Wouldn't you think though that the that teachers nowadays would be able to identify that? Aren't they given the tools to make those assessments and say, well, maybe Evangeline can't hear me, or are they sitting there screaming at them and saying, "What's wrong with you?" I just don't get it. It seems we've come so far in embracing diversity and in sensitivity training, and but yet not. I guess why haven't the assessments been updated? Why aren't the teachers being trained here?
A great question. I pray for the opportunity to think that that would happen again. There was a time when that was happening more so in the 1990s, I would say, early 2000s. What I have to say now is if you walk into a classroom, you can measure, the teacher just keeps talking.
Hmm.
And, they don't realize that one, if they slow down by a third, more people comprehend. But learning is a social interaction, so it should be as limited amount of talk from the teacher and hearing from the kids. 10 minutes, mini lesson.
Right.
After the mini lesson, put them in pairs. What do you see? What did you just hear? Let's write something. What ideas? Even draw a picture of what idea we just talked about. That's really what we want to be doing, allowing more balance in the seesaw of teaching. But we have evolved into a kind of a back to a drill and kill kind of thing. Listen, do what I say, right.
Is there a still a stigmatism to for students being in special ed? Say, are their peers see them? There's their bullying or that sort of thing that goes
Plenty,
on, or
plenty.
typecasting. Yeah.
Absolutely, Meleti. It is. I have no other being called a quote sped kid, uh, being a kid who has to go out for reading. Um, I can't tell you how many kids, the stress of what they're honestly fourth and fifth grade kids um, were, in my experience, vaping because honestly, the stress, the bullying, if they're not big, if they're not complete, if they're especially boys, there is a higher proportion of boys in this category. Um, it is very hard. It's hard to watch, so that's drawn me into trying to, in private practice and directly with kids in schools, to try to sit beside more of these learners to gather more information about them and have them believe in themselves. They could be a great artist. They
Yeah.
could be a great musician. They have to find a place where it isn't just about reading and writing. I
Right.
mean, Cher was dyslexic. Tom Cruise was dyslexic. All of these people found, they had gifts. They still have gifts. But nobody knows that you can be a hero and have a learning disability.
What are the effects, say, for the student? We talked about anxieties, but after being put into special ed, not being understood, do they miss opportunities? They're being bullied. How do they come out of that? How do they find out about you and what you're offering?
Well, um, I'm going to say a small piece in my first book, which is called "Whose Judgment Counts." It's the story of assessing little bilingual kids under third grade. I learned, and this is what led me to go on and keep trying to understand this. When a kid's in special ed, even if they're misidentified because they don't speak English, they end up in there for 6 years. And that's a minority kid, a Greek kid, a second language kid, a white kid, a white Anglo-Saxon that's normed, those tests were ready for them. They're out of there in a year if there's a mistake, because the system doesn't reevaluate for 3 years. But when you have a parent that goes in with, a lawyer and says, "Hey, I don't think this is the right assessment," you
Right.
can get right out.
Right.
But somebody's got to believe in the child and have the resources. It's a lot about money.
Is it?
Sad.
It is, yeah. And like anything else, having someone there that can advocate for you. We've heard the stories about so many Greek children when they came over in the
Mhm.
50s and 60s that were just, put into special ed, and then someone coming from the community and standing up and saying, "Wait a minute, they don't belong here. They just don't. Their English isn't their first language." Imagine coming from a small village and someone speaking with you in a language that you haven't heard. You might
Mhm.
tilt your head a little bit like a dog's trying to figure it out. What are they saying? Or anything that you can grasp onto. For us, we see it as a blessing, but for someone else it might be, "Oh, they're not getting it. See, they're not listening to me." And then so it can tumble on itself. So do you have a website, by the way, if people wanted to find out about your services and what you're doing, more about your work? What is?
Well, they can just Google my name and they'll see my information is in Google and Google Scholar. The other is I'm most recently in private practice, so I haven't put together a full website. But I'm very available. If you click into Google, you'll see my name. You'll see that I have an office in Harvard Square and my information. So I'm not. I haven't spiffed up yet because I'm just really opening the doors to um, the local community because I've spent so many years helping other kids. I want to help our kids, our families. Um, as a kind of lucky Greek kid that had parents that kept believing I could do it, and I will say uh, this is an interesting, I'll add this because this could be everybody that's listening. I would be killing myself to get A's on my report card because my dad would, the rewards would be good and I was the first kid. And all he would say is, "I expect more." He used to
Really?
say, "What more?" And he's up there looking, and he and his brothers, they're all like the same thing with all their kids. "Oh, good. We expect more. What's next?"
Yeah,
So
right.
if you think about it,
Yeah.
um, it is because they believe that you are doing okay according to the measures that the school wants, but that's not enough. It's our world too. And how are you helping? And my father would always say, are you going to help your brother now with his homework? Are you going to go work? Are you going to come out and help with the lawn? I mean, yeah.
If you're just joining us this morning, our guest is Dr. Evangeline Harris Stefanakis. She specializes in understanding the complexity of language and learning challenges in adults and children. For many years, she taught in the public school system, and she is a professor emeritus, a tenured professor, retired professor from Boston University and from Harvard.
Yeah.
And she has a number of books that have been published. You can find them online, and also she has a great professional experience in direct services for children and families, and she has a special practice in research and consulting in psychoeducational reform. Has done many programs, and wanted to ask you because I had heard something about a program you did with children, and it was with NASA.
Yes.
Can tell us about that? That seems so exciting. I'm looking for the flyer that you sent to me, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this was kind of an interesting thing. There is NASA has what's called Globe Mission Earth, which is a nationwide, um, international actually program where kids actually go out and they become citizen scientists. They get kits from NASA, they go out and measure the clouds, get data, upload it on phones from as young as third grade. And they learn about the atmosphere, alias the clouds. How do you predict weather? What is precipitation? Uh, but then they also learn about the land. How do you plant? How do you in many ways create, they learn about what's called bud burst and how we grow things, what about the environment, the soil, measuring soil temperatures, water. It's quite amazing. And I spent 3 years going to Providence schools, being out with these kids. Who were in direct service. Sadly, the state took over the Providence schools, so we pivoted and created an afternoon club called Kids Club, NASA Kids Club. And we actually, in the springtime, for 6 weeks, we invite people from all over the country, third to fifth graders, who come on weekly on Zoom, and they get kits. We mail them kits from NASA of all the tools, magnifying glasses, measuring cups, wind measurement. There's quite a lot to it, and if you Google Globe Mission Earth, you'll see. But these kids have a science notebook. My contribution is I use the portfolio. They actually draw 4 days. What did you see? Look at that cloud. What time? What date? What? And so they're out there like four days a week, turning in the data. And I can't tell you. And many of them are like they. Then the big brother does it, and the younger kid does it. We keep doing it. It's standing room only now. We have kids from Toledo, Ohio, with kids from Washington D.C., with kids. The kids from Boston always have the worst weather. Honest to God, the kids from New York, upstate New York, are the only rivals. And it's fascinating to see how they've uploaded this information because NASA satellites, this is something that got me interested. I was always interested in astronomy. NASA satellites only can record way up high in the atmosphere. They rely on citizen scientists like this to send them information to be looking at what and where weather patterns and how catastrophic they could be. The prediction of the tsunami, which was recently in Sri Lanka, which friends of mine were there, this information came because kids in Sri Lanka are part of Globe Mission Earth, and they've been sending data indicating the conditions of concern.
Such a great way for kids to realize there's a bigger world to be
Yep.
concerned with and to make them feel a part of it. I'd like to go back to your upbringing and try to understand how did you get into this field? What was there a trigger event? What do you know what even brought you into it?
Yes.
What
Um,
interest?
and I have to say, I was a kid in school. I have a brother 20 months younger than I. Um, and I'm Evangelia and he's Evangelos. How's that for differentiated thinking? Um, I had no problem eventually learning. I was quiet. I did what I was supposed to do. Um, and I could do the work in this Arlington Public Schools despite Miss McEwen in second grade, identifying that I needed to learn my name. My brother really struggled. My
Oh,
brother, he needed glasses. It took a while for him to get the glasses he needed. And he really had a learning problem in terms of reading and writing. And my mother understood that he had struggled in Greek school and in American school, that there was something going on. But it took the school really almost fifth grade till he started getting some extra help. I give the perseverance and support that he showed with his learning issues. And I remember my mother saying, they gave him an IQ test. He's way higher than you in performance. Like he can think quicker, he can build things. You just happen to have the linguistic skills, the language acquisition skills that he has different. And watching his struggles led me to want to see how many kids like Evan are out there and they could do better.
yeah. Do you work with autistic children?
Oh, yes.
You do.
Oh, yes, I do.
Oh,
I'll thank Tufts University for that. As part of my training, we had something called the Leonard Carmichael Society, which took us to the DC projects, and we were put the kids from Tufts. They took us over D Street in South Boston, bottles coming around, and there were literally in the housing projects, autistic kids that could not go to school. And we were given puppets to try to help them. And we used puppet therapy, we used dance therapy, just touching and moving. And that was the beginning of my understanding that autism is a spectrum, not just, the without opportunity and stimulation. And I'm not going to say every autistic kid, there are many that are more severe, but we need to actually look as there are ways to engage their senses, looking at what kind of reinforcements and behaviors can help support them to gain language. And once they gain language and communication, the strange behaviors start to go back. It's a balance, and early identification is super important.
oh, it's gotta be. It could change the course of someone's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new research that's showing we underestimate how girls present very differently with autism than boys, and we're beginning to. There are many tools to help us better understand them.
Do you think that now you've been to other countries? I introduced you and said that you had worked also in Greece and Bahrain and Eastern Europe and Puerto Rico. Was that in this capacity, or what were
Yeah,
you?
yes. When I was in Greece, I was the first learning disability specialist and a reading specialist undercover at the American Community Schools of Athens. And I ended up, because so many people from Greek schools came, also working um, from Athens College. Parents heard about, that I could help kids that had reading difficulties. So I had a private practice. We even started with Leslie College, training other special educators because there weren't any in Greece. So there are people now who were actually trained through Cambridge, Massachusetts, Leslie College at the time, because we brought over professors from Leslie to Greece, happy to come they were, and actually trained people for, and that program is not completely going, but it's still a pipeline for people in Greece. And same thing in Bahrain. I wasn't there intending to get found doing this work, but as part of the United Nations, when I was part of the UNDP community, they saw my background, and one of the Sheikh's kids had learning disabilities. I ended up having to teach him. He was a 14-year-old that was stuck on his video game, so I had to teach him how to swim, how to get on a bike, how to pay attention in school. So
Right.
it's been an interesting way to think about this work.
Are these programs generally funded by special grants, or are they built into the annual budgets?
It depends.
Mm.
Um, In the United States, they are supposed to be built into the budgets, but most recently, huge cuts have been made in these programs, especially for school psychologists who are more advanced counselors for the more severe kids. In Greece, there are laws in place, and private schools do have programs. The public schools, it really depends where.
Yeah.
What is another opportunity, though, is vocational training is much stronger in Greece and in many of these places. So the vocational, from seventh grade, kids often end up succeeding by being involved with vocational education. I spent a period of time at the American farm schools in Thessaloniki, where kids became stewards of the land. And I will tell
Wow.
you what, besides the fact that they taught me how to make ouzo, uh, they're up in the morning, getting the omega-free eggs. They know exactly how to work it. The first pasteurized milk came in Greece was from the American Farm School in Salonika. So there's a rich history of finding ways to find the potential in every learner.
What about in Puerto Rico now? That's a U.S. territory. You're
Yeah.
down there.
Well, I was there as part of a team that was looking to create the Spanish SAT,
Hmm.
because they are much more aware of Spanish plus English in their education. What they have one of the most sophisticated, I believe, sophisticated systems, because they do not expect, if a child is not reading well, they don't even consider looking at that before they're 7 years old.
Hmm.
And they have a systematic way that kid can't come into school without getting their glasses to check their vision. More not just this pile of kids rushing through, but every kid has to show that they have been to they've had an eye test, they've had a hearing test, and their physical. They have like a little biblio, a little book that shows that they check their blood sugar, they check that they're, if they have other illnesses. So they walk in with this idea that the parents present the book.
Hmm. Okay. That's great. That's
So
great.
there's an early identification of issues, and therefore within the mainstream, they can more actively, and they keep classroom size for kids. There's a mixture. Some classes are only 12 kids, others have 40. It depends on the kid and the kind of pace.
Hmm. It seems there are best practices that can be called out and
Yeah.
shared in other regions, and that's where your expertise comes in too. To say that, well, we know that this has worked before, and you can quickly identify situations and help. Now, it's you and I grew up. We had a lot of support. We had support from our community,
Hmm.
support from inside our family,
Hmm.
for different things. But a lot of children don't have that. They don't have those opportunities. And so sometimes they go to school, and maybe teachers feel that we're asking too much of them, but we're not really. We're just trying to make it better. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Is there before you go, I wanted to ask: is there a thought that you'd want to leave everyone with today?
Uh, yes, I guess if you, as a family, have an inkling or concern about a child, even if they're young or even if they're older, even if they're struggling in high school or college, seek out talking to someone about it, and be there are ways to do evaluations that are not shameful. It is actually, you don't have to be alone with the problem of a kid at any point. So I'm here, and there are many others. I know a network of wonderful people, who are advocates. Cynthia DeAngelis is a wonderful person. Philip Mimidakis, who does counseling. There are a number of us who can help. And I have to say that my hope is that we as a community at least support kids at any point. And I'm opening my door and want to welcome people, even adults who might want to do this work. I would really love to see more people think about becoming a school psychologist or a special educator. Um, you always have a job, and you've already done great things.
That's just great. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we just barely scratched the surface, both of your work and on the complexity of some of the things that you've mentioned. But the essence of it is that every person has a potential, and it's just learning how to assess that. And this is what I'm understanding. Would that be a right way of summing it up?
You just said it so well. I can't thank you enough, Meleti, for the opportunity on this snowy day to share great ideas. And
Thank
thank you so much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this morning was Dr. Evangeline Harris Stefanakis. She specializes in understanding the complexity of language and learning challenges in adults and children. It's Mondays with Meleti and your host, Meleti Pouliopoulos. Stay tuned.